Hi and welcome to video log 6 on the coaching process. So the aims of this video is to identify a coaching behaviour that I could improve on from the session that I filmed with an individual client and explain why this behaviour requires adapting to enhance the coaching process and obviously the learning process for the client in terms of acquisition of the movements. So in this video log, I'm coaching an individual who has no previous experience with Olympic lifting, and the session was focused on introducing Chelsea to the movements of the snatch, and I took her through the derivative exercises for the snatch with the intention of getting her to attempt obviously the full movement by the end of the session. We did have a very short session, unfortunately. It only sort of had 20 to 30 minutes, so the time constraint was a huge external factor that did influence my coaching style and obviously the outcome of the session. So you can see a small section of the warm-up here at the start of the session, and this was the first time I was actually coaching Chelsea, so I was demonstrating the movements that I wanted her to perform. If I saw Chelsea on a more regular basis and she understood the requirements of the warm-up, then I would have had more time to observe her movement patterns. Ideally, this would have been what I wanted to do so I can identify any areas with fundamental movements such as squatting, jumping, lunging, and addressing those before teaching her the snatch. However, I did get her to perform the exercises a few times over after I'd obviously demonstrated it, so I still had a chance to start looking at how she moves, but ideally I'd be wanting to instruct rather than demonstrate through the warm-up. So the main coaching behaviour that I picked up on when watching the session back was that I rely heavily on demonstration. Demonstration in coaching can be very effective, especially when athletes are learning a new skill, which obviously is the case here for Chelsea. However, I tend to continue to demonstrate as Chelsea is performing the task, so I should really be demonstrating to begin with and then just observing and allow Chelsea to sort of self-discover and correct movements and rely on intrinsic feedback during practice. So this concurrent demonstration may result in her actually relying on the visual cues from myself. And although Chelsea's performance during the session may actually improve from having this feedback, it has been acknowledged that this over-reliance, also known as the guidance hypothesis, can actually reduce learning, especially for the retention of a skill. So this clip here shows how I'm demonstrating at the same time Chelsea is performing the task. At this point, it would have been more beneficial for me to step back and watch. And although her attempt at the full movement was quite good, considering this was about 10 minutes into the session, later on it was obvious that she was over-relying on this information and she started to doubt herself. And when I stepped back to observe without demonstrating at the same time as she was performing, she got very unsure and was asking a lot of questions. However, this may be due to her being inexperienced with the task and the sort of movement patterns I was asking her to perform, rather than being sort of a dependence. So you can see here that when I stopped demonstrating exactly what I wanted Chelsea to do and gave her a movement pattern to solve, I only gave her verbal instructions and she was not actually able to perform the movement properly. However, as soon as I demonstrated the whole movement again, she managed to replicate the movement pattern. So taking this into consideration, this is okay for the first training session as it's not too much of a problem. However, future coaching sessions, I would have to adapt my coaching styles to ensure I utilised instruction and feedback more often to encourage intrinsic feedback capabilities, which should enhance obviously the motor learning process for Chelsea. This coaching behaviour was useful in one part of the session where Chelsea did not understand the speed of the movement and was performing the task too slow. So by demonstrating the speed that was needed and this physical quality to drop under the bar, Chelsea was able to replicate this as she saw the intent and effort that's actually required to produce the speed in this task. So demonstration is a coaching behaviour that is essential and often a very effective method, and it can aid the learning of skills, particularly when the skill is new. A lot of literature recommends that if demonstrations are used, it should be executed skillfully for learning to take place, and also focus on correct performance rather than incorrect performance. This was my intention, as I did just try to replicate the correct movements rather than demonstrating incorrect or poor movement patterns to Chelsea. To make this coaching style more effective in future sessions, I would also consider the angle of which I was providing the demonstrations. Most of this session I was facing Chelsea, whereas she may have benefited more from a side view, especially regarding demonstrations of triple extension and seeing the path of the bar throughout the movement. As Chelsea's skill develops, she would rely less on me and more on her intrinsic awareness to correct movements, so the use of demonstration as a coaching style would be utilised less.